Azira continued her tale while Lily sat quietly beside her, their shoulders touching in a way that spoke of deep familiarity. The human had healed her using their primitive but surprisingly effective medicine. When I awoke, I was in a small medical bay unlike anything in our fleet, Azira explained. The human ship the Horizon was tiny compared to our vessels, but they had traveled farther from their home than we realized. Their medical technology was different from ours. But Lily, she gestured, to the human kept me alive when by all rights I should have died. Lily smiled slightly at the praise but remained silent, allowing Azira to tell her story. At first I was their prisoner, though they called me a patient. Azira continued. I was weak, injured, unable to fight. They could have killed me or used me to gain information about the Empire. Instead, this human spent days tending my wounds, learning to communicate with me. She touched her mechanical arm. The damage was extensive. I lost an eye and arm and had severe internal injuries. The humans did not have regeneration technology like ours, but they were creative. They built me this arm using parts from their ship and my knowledge of Xeraxian physiology. Krell listened with growing fascination. The small human had saved his daughter when all hope had been lost even now. Looking at Azira, he could see the extensive damage she had suffered. He doubted many Xeraxian medics could have saved her with such limited resources. I spent months recovering. On their ship, Azira said, they were explorers, scientists, not warriors. They had no knowledge of our war with the Volturans. They simply wanted to learn about the universe. She looked at Lily with something Krell had never seen in his daughter's eyes. Before affection, perhaps even love. They treated me with respect, curiosity, not fear. Then everything changed. The human ship detected a Volturan patrol. Azira continued. They tried to hide, but their stealth technology is primitive compared to ours. The Volturans attacked without warning. The human captain panicked, ordered evacuation. He abandoned his own medic who refused to leave her patient. Lily finally spoke, her voice soft compared to the harsh tones of Xeraxian speech. I had taken an oath to do no harm, she explained. To the humans in my profession, this includes harm by inaction. I could not leave Azira when she was still recovering. She was my patient and my responsibility, but you were stranded. Krell stated. Lily nodded. We took a small shuttle before the main ship was destroyed. The Volturans didn't bother with us, assuming we would die in space. They were nearly right. She looked at Azira. Our shuttle had limited supplies, limited oxygen, limited everything. But it turns out a Xeraxian warrior and a human medic make a good team. They had survived for weeks on the small shuttle, stretching their resources to the limit. Then they found a derelict trading vessel abandoned after a pirate attack. With Azira's military knowledge and Lily's technical skills, they managed to get it operational enough to reach a small outpost on the edge of known space. We have been living on the fringes ever since, Azira explained, moving from place to place, staying ahead of both Xeraxian and Volturan patrols. Taking odd jobs, repairing ships, transporting goods, learning about each other and the galaxy beyond our borders, as she spoke. Krell noted how his daughter's posture had changed. She was still a warrior, still carried herself with pride, but there was a softness to her he had never seen before. And the human moved in perfect harmony with her, anticipating her needs without words. They functioned as a unit despite their physical differences. The humans have technology different from ours, Father Azira explained. Not as advanced in some ways, but more innovative in others. They think differently, solve problems in ways we never considered. She looked at Lily with undisguised admiration. Lily saved my life with medical techniques our doctors would never have attempted because they were not the established protocol. Krell turned his attention fully to the human. For 20 years, my daughter has been presumed dead. Why return now? Lily met his gaze steadily. We intercepted communications about increased Volturan activity near the Kelvin Nebula, she explained. Our sources suggested they have developed a new weapon, one capable of destroying entire solar systems. She hesitated, then added, they plan to test it on the Xeraxian colony. World of Nexus Prime. Krell hissed, his crest rising in anger. Nexus Prime was home to millions of Xeraxian civilians, including many younglings. How did you learn this? Azira and I have built a network of contacts over the years. Lily said, some are humans who have ventured into this sector. Others are species from worlds caught in the crossfire of your war. All want peace and will share information that might help end the fighting. Krell studied the human carefully. His species had evolved as apex predators able to sense deception. He detected none in her words or manner. You risk your life bringing this information to us. The Empire does not look kindly on outsiders. Lily smiled, a gesture that showed her small, flat teeth. I risk my life. For peace, High Commander, and for Azira. She deserves to come home later after Azira and Lily had been shown to guest quarters. Krell's advisor Vex approached him with concern. High Commander, we cannot trust this human creature. Vex said, his voice low. We know nothing of their kind, their motives. It could be a Volturan trick. Krell considered this. The thought had occurred to him as well. But he had seen the way his daughter looked at the human. The bond between them was undeniable. And the intelligence about the Volturan weapon matched reports from their own spies. Have our best engineers examine their ship, Krell ordered, and verify the information about the Volturan weapon. But do not restrict their movements. They are guests, not prisoners, especially my daughter. As days passed, Krell observed the strange pair with growing interest. The human Lily spent hours in the medical bay studying Xeraxian physiology and sharing human medical techniques with the ship's doctors. Several injured warriors who had not responded to traditional treatments improved under her care. Azira, meanwhile, reconnected with her old comrades. Many had risen through the ranks during her absence. Some had become commanders of their own vessels. They welcomed her back with the traditional Xeraxian greeting, pressing their foreheads together and sharing breath. Her tactical knowledge remained sharp, and she spent long hours reviewing the current state of the war, offering insights that only an outsider could provide. But it was when the two were together that Krell found himself most fascinated. Despite their physical differences, they moved in perfect synchronization. Each anticipated the other's needs. Each protected the other in subtle ways. He had seen such behavior only among Xeraxian pairs who had been bonded for decades, yet his daughter and this alien had achieved it in 20 years. One evening, Krell found Lily alone on the observation deck staring out at the stars. Her small frame was silhouetted against the vastness of space, making her seem even more fragile. You are far from home, little human, he said. Joining her, Lily turned to him without surprise. Earth is far away. Yes, but home, she gestured to indicate the ship around them, is wherever Azira is. Krell considered this. In Xeraxian culture, home was their territory, their planet, their empire. The concept that home could be a person was foreign yet appealing. You truly care for my daughter. Lily smiled. I love her, High Commander. In human terms, she is my soulmate. We have different biology, different cultures, different histories, but we share a bond that transcends those differences. Krell had no direct translation for soulmate, but he understood the concept. What happens when you die? Your species has such a short lifespan compared to ours. Azira will live for centuries after you are gone. Lily looked back at the stars. We have discussed this. I have perhaps 60 more years if I'm fortunate. A blink in Xeraxian terms. But I would rather give Azira 60 years of happiness than leave her with none. And who knows, perhaps by then your scientists will have found a way to extend human life or transfer consciousness. She shrugged, a very human gesture. Or perhaps we will simply treasure the time we have. There was wisdom in her words, Krell realized. A warrior's perspective focused on the certainty of death, but acceptance of its inevitability. The human did not fear what could not be changed, but instead chose to find value in the present. This too was a warrior's way, though expressed differently. The war between the Xeraxians and the Volturans had lasted for centuries without end. The once beautiful planets of the Orion sector now stood as barren wastelands, testament to the destruction both species had wrought upon each other. High Commander Krell, the supreme ruler of the vast Xeraxian Empire, stood on the bridge of his massive warship, the Dominator. His scaled skin glinted under the harsh lights of the command center as he stared out at the endless stars. His tail swished against the polished floor, the only sign of his inner turmoil. 20 years ago, his only daughter, Commander Azira, had led a fleet of 50 warships against the Volterans at Voltus Prime. It should have been a decisive victory for the Empire. Instead, they received only static and silence. No ships returned, no survivors were found, no bodies recovered to honor with the sacred death rites. The loss had shaken the Empire, but for Krell, it had been devastating. She was his only child, his legacy, and his heart. The memory haunted him daily. He had lost his mate Sorva in childbirth and then his daughter in war. Now he ruled alone, feared by all, but loved by none. His reputation for ruthlessness had only grown since that day. His enemies whispered that the High Commander had turned to stone, that nothing remained in his chest but ice and hatred. The whispers were not entirely wrong. Officer Draz, a young Xeraxian with scales still bright with youth, approached the commander with evident nervousness, his crest flattened against his skull in deference. "High Commander, I bring news from the Outer Rim patrols. A strange ship approaches our borders near the Kelvin Nebula. It does not match any known design in our database. Our scanners detect 2 life forms aboard. One registers as Xeraxian. The other is unknown." Krell narrowed his golden eyes with vertical pupils dilating in interest. An unknown species. This was unusual. Most intelligent species in their sector had already been catalogued conquered, or destroyed by either the Xeraxian Empire or their Volteran enemies. He turned his massive frame toward the officer, his ceremonial armor clicking softly with the movement. "Show me." The view screen flickered to life, displaying a small vessel unlike anything in the Xeraxian fleet. It appeared to be constructed from salvaged parts held together with ingenuity rather than precision. Its design was asymmetrical, almost haphazard, yet it moved with surprising grace through the asteroid field that had claimed many larger, more powerful ships. "Have they responded to hails?" Krell asked, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Yes." High Commander Officer Draz replied. "They request permission to dock. They claim to have important information for you. Personally, the Xeraxian lifeform has provided Imperial identification codes that are—" They hesitated. "Speak," Krell commanded. "The codes are 22 years old, sir. They belong to Commander Azira." The bridge fell silent. The younger officers had only heard stories of the commander's lost daughter, but the veterans among them remembered her well. Her tactical brilliance, her honor in battle, her loyalty to her father, and the Empire. "Impossible," Krell whispered. But there was a flicker of something in his eyes that had not been there for decades. "Hope bring them to me when they land," he ordered after a moment of consideration. "And double the guard. I do not trust coincidences." The strange ship was guided to the massive docking bay of the Dominator. As it came closer, Xeraxian engineers studied it with fascination and confusion. It was unlike anything in their records. Small, sleek, with strange markings and technological components they could not identify. A mix of salvaged parts from various systems and something entirely new. When the ship settled in the docking bay with a soft hiss of hydraulics, Krell himself went down to meet it, a break in protocol that shocked his advisors. He was flanked by his elite guard warriors who had proven their loyalty through countless battles. Their ceremonial armor gleamed under the harsh lights of the docking bay, weapons held ready. The ship's door opened slowly with a mechanical groan. A tall Xeraxian female stepped out. Her scales, once vibrant blue, were now scarred and dull with a network of pale lines marking past injuries. Her right eye had been replaced with a cybernetic implant that glowed faintly in the dim light of the bay. Her left arm was entirely mechanical, a sophisticated prosthetic that hummed softly as she moved. She wore no uniform, no insignia of rank, just practical clothing designed for space travel. But there was no mistaking her features, the shape of her crest, the pattern of her scales. Azira, Krell whispered, unable to believe his eyes. Behind her emerged another figure so different from the Xeraxians that many guards raised their weapons instinctively. It was smaller than even a Xeraxian child, with no scales, no claws, no tail. It had pale skin, with strange colored patches across its cheeks and a mass of red fur atop its head. Its eyes were green like the rare forests of the Xeraxian homeworld. It stood upright on two legs like a Xeraxian, but appeared fragile, breakable, yet it stood tall, unafraid beside the scarred Xeraxian female. Father Azira said, her voice rougher than he remembered but unmistakably hers. "This is Lily Morgan, my mate and the reason I am alive." Krell stared at the alien creature, trying to comprehend what his daughter had just said. This small, soft being was her mate. It seemed impossible. The creature was half the size of a Xeraxian with no natural defenses. He could see no scales or claws, just soft skin and seemingly fragile limbs. Yet it stood beside his daughter with confidence, meeting his gaze without fear. The alien stepped forward. Its movements were fluid, graceful in their own way. Her tiny, five-fingered hand took Azira's massive clawed one in a gesture of obvious affection. "I am Lily Morgan of Earth, High Commander Krell," the creature said in nearly perfect Xeraxian. "Though its soft mouth struggled with some of the harder sounds, I found your daughter floating in space barely alive after the Battle of Voltus Prime. I was a medic on a human exploration vessel, the Horizon. We had ventured farther than any humans before us when we detected the aftermath of your battle." Krell remembered that battle all too well. 20 years ago, Azira's fleet had engaged the Volturans in what should have been a decisive victory. Instead, communication had been lost and no survivors had been found. The Empire had mourned, then raged, then continued the endless war with renewed fury. "I saved her life," Lily continued, "and she saved mine when my crew abandoned me after a Volturan patrol attacked our ship. We have been surviving together ever since." Krell studied the human with new interest. "Your kind are unknown to us. We come from a small planet called Earth in a system far from your empire," Lily explained. "But we are survivors, like you. Our technology is different, but effective in its own way. And we have much to offer." Later in Krell's private chambers, with only his most trusted advisors present, Azira told him everything. How her ship had been destroyed in an ambush. How she had been thrown clear during the explosion. How she had floated in space dying, her suit damaged, her oxygen depleting, until a strange vessel unlike anything she'd ever seen had found her. A week after Azira and Lily arrived on the Dominator, the intelligence about the Volturan weapon was confirmed. A Xeraxian scout ship returned from the border, with disturbing footage of a massive installation being built in orbit around a distant moon. The scouts had been detected before they could gather more information, but what they had seen matched Lily's description perfectly. Krell called a meeting of his war council, including Azira, and to the shock of many advisors, Lily as well. Humans seemed out of place among the towering scaled warriors, but she sat beside Azira with quiet confidence. The scout footage played on the large display in the center of the room. The massive weapon installation dwarfed the moon it orbited. "According to our intelligence," Lily said, studying the footage, "they call it the Void Hammer. It works by creating a localized disruption in space-time. The effect propagates outward, consuming everything in its path." She looked around the table at the Xeraxian officers. "Our scientific contacts believe it could destroy an entire solar system and potentially create a cascading effect that could threaten multiple systems." Vex, the head of Krell's military advisory council, scoffed. "Impossible. No such weapon exists." Azira leaned forward. "Our father thought the same about the neutron cascade bombs until the Volturans used them on Xerix 3, she reminded him. 20 million dead in an instant. We cannot afford to dismiss this threat. How would you suggest we proceed?" Krell asked his daughter. "We have two options," Azira replied. "We can launch a preemptive strike against the installation before the weapon is operational." She glanced at Lily. "Or we can try something the Volturans would never expect." Krell narrowed his eyes. "And what would that be?" "Diplomacy," Lily said simply. The room erupted in harsh Xeraxian laughter. Their species had evolved as hunters and warriors. Diplomacy was seen as weakness. A last resort of the defeated. Lily waited for the laughter to subside. "For 20 years I've studied your conflict with the Volturans," she said calmly. "Both sides have lost billions of lives, hundreds of planets. Entire species caught in the crossfire have been exterminated. You fight over territories that no longer support life over resources that could be shared over insults from generations past. She looked at Krell directly. Where has this path led you? High Commander. Krell did not answer immediately. His people expected him to dismiss the humans, words to reaffirm the Zeraxian commitment to total victory. But he had ruled long enough to see the cost of this endless war. The Volturans would never agree to negotiations, Vex argued. They are treacherous by nature. Lily smiled. I thought the same. Might be said about Zeraxians before I met Azira. The room fell silent at her boldness. Insulting the High Commander or the Zeraxian people was punishable by death. Yet Krell found himself amused by the humans' courage. Perhaps I was wrong. Lily continued. I have learned that Zeraxians value honor, strength, and loyalty. These are admirable traits, and perhaps the stories about Volturan treachery have been exaggerated by centuries of war, just as they likely tell stories about Zeraxian brutality. Have tried peace before, Krell said, remembering ancient treaties long broken. The Volturans cannot be trusted, Azira spoke up. Father, the difference now is that we have something they want: knowledge of human space. Human worlds are resource-rich, untouched. By our war, the Volturans would not risk losing access to them. Krell considered this. It was true that new resources, new territories would be valuable to both empires, and yet the Void Hammer suggests they plan extermination, not negotiation. I have contacts among species that trade with both empires, Lily said. Even the Volturans need allies, suppliers. The weapon is a desperate measure. High Commander. They fear you are developing something similar. Their scientists warn that using it risks damaging the fabric of space itself, potentially threatening even their own worlds. For hours the Council debated. Preemptive strike strategies were proposed and analyzed. The chances of success were slim. The weapon installation was heavily guarded and time was short. A failed attack might trigger early use of the weapon. Finally, Krell made his decision. We will attempt this diplomacy, but from a position of strength. He looked at Lily. You claim to understand both our peoples. Can you draft terms that would be acceptable to both sides? Lily nodded. But I would need assistance from someone who understands Volturan culture, their values. What they might accept. Krell turned to his advisors. Bring me. Mara. Murmur went through the room. Mara was a Volturan, prisoner captured 5 years ago. She had been a diplomat before the war had intensified. She now served as a cultural advisor, helping the Zeraxians understand their enemy. Though technically a prisoner, she was treated with respect due to her knowledge and cooperation. When Mara was brought to the council chamber, the tension was palpable. She was tall for a Volturan, with iridescent scales that shifted color with her mood and long tendrils that framed her face. She bowed to Krell with formal precision. You requested my presence, High Commander. She said, her voice melodic compared to the harsh Zeraxian tones. Krell gestured to Lily. This is Lily Morgan of Earth. She seeks to draft terms for peace negotiations with your people. You will assist her. Maris. Scales flickered with surprise. Peace, she repeated as though the word was foreign. Then her gaze fell on Azira, and recognition dawned. The lost commander returns, she said, and with a new species. How fascinating. For the next 3 days, Lily, Azira, and Mara worked together drafting potential peace terms. They were joined by various advisors from both military and civilian sectors. Krell observed their progress, noting how the human facilitated discussions between lifelong enemies, finding common ground where none seemed to exist. On the 4th day, Lily presented their proposal to Krell and his full council. These terms addressed the core concerns of both empires. She explained, a demilitarized zone between your territories monitored by neutral, third parties, trade agreements that benefit both sides, cultural exchanges to build understanding and trust over time. She highlighted specific points on the display. Most importantly, a joint research initiative to safely dismantle the Void Hammer and prevent similar weapons from being developed in the future. Vex studied the proposal with skepticism. And if they refuse, these terms require us to withdraw from contested territories we won with Zeraxian blood. Azira answered. Every territory we hold they want back. Every planet they control, we seek to reclaim. This cycle has continued for centuries. It must end somewhere. Krell read through the proposal again. It was not perfect. It required concessions. The Empire would find difficult to accept. But it offered a path forward that did not end in more destruction. How do we present this to the Volturan leadership? He asked. I suggest a neutral location, Lily said. A space station in unclaimed territory. We have identified several possible sites. She displayed a star chart. The Adari trading post is accessible to both empires and has communication facilities capable of supporting secure transmissions. And who would deliver this proposal? Krell asked, though he suspected the answer Azira, and Lily said, we represent something new. Something outside your centuries of conflict, a Ziraxian who has lived beyond the Empire and a human with no stake in your past wars. It is too dangerous. Krell said immediately. The Volturans might kill. You both on site. Azira stepped forward. Father, I led 50 ships into battle against them without hesitation. I can face them again for peace. Krell saw the determination in his daughter's eyes, the same fierce resolve that had made her an exceptional commander. But now it was directed toward peace, not war. He looked at the small human beside her who had somehow changed his daughter's perspective after decades of conflict. Very well, he said finally. But you will not go alone. The next day, preparations began for the diplomatic mission. A small fleet would escort Azira and Lily to the edge of Ziraxian space. From there, they would continue to the Adari trading post in their original ship, less threatening than a Ziraxian warship as they prepared. To depart, Krell visited them in the docking bay. He found Lily adjusting something on their vessel's communication array. Her small hands moved with surprising dexterity among the alien technology. You truly believe this can succeed? He asked her. Lily straightened her expression serious. I believe it must, High Commander. The alternative is mutual destruction. She wiped her hands on her clothing, leaving dark smudges. The void. Hammer is just the beginning. If this war continues, both sides will develop weapons of increasing power until nothing remains of either empire. Krell had lived long enough to recognize the truth in her words. They had already lost so much. Entire generations had known nothing but war. Why do you care about our conflict? He asked. The human could have taken Azira to Earth, lived in peace far from the war. Lily smiled. Because I love your daughter and because humans have fought our own wars, nearly destroying our planet more than once. We learn sometimes the hard way that cooperation yields better results than conflict. She looked up at the massive Ziraxian. Your daughter is remarkable. High Commander, brave, brilliant, adaptable. I would follow her anywhere, even into peace negotiations with an enemy who might kill us both. Krell studied the small alien creature. Understanding bloomed within him. This was why Azira had chosen her. Not despite her fragile appearance, but because of what lay beneath it. Courage, compassion, and a vision that extended beyond the next battle. Take care of my daughter, Krell said formally. The journey to the Adari trading post took 16 days. Their small vessel traveled through territories that had once been thriving worlds, now reduced to asteroid fields and radiation zones, silent monuments to the futility of the endless war. Lily spent much of the journey studying Volturan culture and language with Mara's help, while Azira coordinated with the Ziraxian escort fleet that would remain at the border awaiting their return. The Adari trading post was a massive structure, built into a hollowed asteroid. Its neutrality was maintained through complex agreements with various species, none of whom wished to see the station destroyed. The Adari themselves were a species of methane breathers who had evolved in gas giant atmospheres. They had no interest in terrestrial planets, making them ideal neutral parties in the Ziraxian-Volturan conflict as their ship docked at the station. Lily felt apprehension for the first time since proposing this mission. The Volturans had agreed to receive the peace delegation, but there was no guarantee of their sincerity. We should be prepared for treachery, Azira said, checking her weapons one final time. Lily placed a hand on her mate's arm. These negotiations must be conducted. In good faith, she said. If we arrive expecting betrayal, they will sense it. Azira sighed, her crest flattening slightly. You humans and your optimism, it will get you killed one day. Lily smiled. Perhaps, but it might save a few billion lives first. They were met at the airlock by an Adari representative, floating in a containment suit filled with methane. The translucent being guided them through the station's curving corridors to a large chamber designed for interspecies negotiations. The room had sections with different atmospheric compositions separated by transparent barriers, allowing species with incompatible biology to interact. The Volturan delegation was already present. 5 tall figures with scales that shifted through iridescent colors as light played across them. Unlike the Xeraxians, their bodies were more serpentine with 4 arms instead of 2, and tendrils that framed their faces which served as sensory organs. Their leader was immediately identifiable by the elaborate ornamentation on her scales and the deference shown by the others. Ambassador Telax Lily said, performing the formal Volturan greeting that Mara had taught her. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." The Volturan ambassador studied Lily with obvious curiosity, her tendrils extending toward the barrier between them. "A human," she said, her voice melodic. "We have heard rumors of your species." She turned her attention to Azira. "Commander, Azira, long thought dead. You have returned at an interesting time. For hours they discussed the peace proposal. Lily presented each point, carefully explaining the benefits to both empires, while Azira provided strategic context. The Volturans listened, asked questions, and occasionally conferred among themselves in their own language. "The demilitarized zone is too extensive," Ambassador Telax said eventually. "It includes systems that have been Volturan for generations." Azira leaned forward. "Those systems were Xeraxian before they were Volturan. They have changed hands multiple times in the past century. Neither side can claim them by right of history, only by right of current occupation, which changes with each offensive, and that is precisely why we cannot withdraw." Telax countered, "If we show weakness, your empire will simply take them back." Lily intervened. "This is why the neutral monitoring is essential. Neither side can make a move without triggering an immediate response from the third-party observers." The discussions continued over several days. Concessions were made on both sides. The demilitarized zone was adjusted. Reparations were discussed and dismissed as impractical, given the scale of destruction on both sides. Trade agreements were modified to ensure neither empire gained advantage over the other throughout it all. Lily observed the Volturans with growing understanding. They were not the monsters Xeraxian propaganda had portrayed. They were a proud species with their own values, their own perspective on the conflict. Both sides believed themselves justified. Both had suffered immeasurable losses. On the 5th day they reached the critical point, the Void Hammer. "This weapon must be dismantled," Azira stated. "The technology is too dangerous. It threatens not just our empires, but all life." In this sector of the galaxy, Telax scales darkened a sign of displeasure. "The Void Hammer is our defense against Xeraxian aggression. It is the only thing preventing your father from launching another genocide campaign like the one at Voltur 6. Azira hissed, her crest rising at the accusation. "Voltur 6 was a military target. Your forces used civilian shelters to house weapon systems." Lily placed a hand on Azira's arm, gently but firmly. "Can we agree?" she said, addressing both of them, "that, regardless of past actions, the Void Hammer technology poses a threat to everyone, including the Volturan people. Your own scientists have expressed concerns about spatial instability." Telax's tendrils twitched. A gesture Mara had explained indicated surprise. "How? Do you know what our scientists have said?" "We have our sources," Lily replied diplomatically. "Just as you have yours about Xeraxian military movements. The point is that this weapon benefits neither side. It only ensures mutual destruction." For a long moment Telax was silent. Then she signaled to one of her advisors, who approached and whispered something to her. Telax's scales shifted through several colors before settling on a deep blue. "We will consider dismantling the Void Hammer," she said finally, "but only if the Xeraxians agree to international inspection of their research facilities. We have intelligence suggesting they are developing their own version." This was unexpected. Lily glanced at Azira, who looked equally surprised. "I have no knowledge," of such a project, Azira said, but I have been away for 20 years. She turned to Lily. We must contact my father. The communication with the Dominator was tense. Krell listened to their report, his expression unreadable. When Azira repeated the Volturan claim about a Zeraxian version of the Void Hammer, he was silent for several moments. There is such a project, he admitted. Finally, it began after we lost you at Voltus Prime, a response to Volturan advances in weapons technology. It is called the Abyss Protocol. Lily felt a chill. The Zeraxians had their own doomsday weapon, and neither she nor Azira had known. Would you agree to international inspection of these facilities? She asked Krell carefully. If it meant the Volturans would dismantle the Void. Hammer Krell's eyes narrowed. The Abyss Protocol is our insurance against Volturan treachery. Without it, they would overrun our borders within months, Father Azira said, her voice soft but firm. We cannot ask them to give up their weapon while developing our own. That is not peace, it is strategic advantage. If we truly want this war to end, both sides must make equal sacrifices. Krell was silent for so long, Lily feared they'd lost the connection. Finally he spoke. This inspection, who would conduct it? Lily had anticipated this question. The Adari would be ideal, she said. They have maintained neutrality for centuries. They have no interest in planets or conventional resources. Their only concern is stability in the region, which benefits their trade. Krell considered this. Very well, he said eventually. If the Volturans agree to dismantle their weapon and accept inspection of the dismantling process, we will allow inspection of the Abyss Protocol. But Lily Morgan of Earth know this. If this fails, if they betray us, the consequence will be the end of both our empires. The weapons we have developed will ensure no one survives. With this concession secured, Lily and Azira returned to the negotiations. The Volturans were surprised by Krell's agreement, but after lengthy deliberation among themselves, they accepted the terms. It would take months, perhaps years, to fully implement the peace agreement. But the first step was taken there on the Adari trading post. A formal ceasefire was declared, the first in over 200 years of conflict. As they prepared to return to the Dominator with the signed agreement, Lily felt a profound sense of accomplishment. It was far from a perfect peace. There were many who would resist on both sides. Centuries of hatred and fear could not be erased with a single document, but it was a beginning. Ambassador Tellax approached them before they departed. She had removed her formal regalia and appeared more relaxed than Lily had seen her. You have accomplished something remarkable, human, she said. I did not believe it was possible to find common ground with the Zeraxians. After so many failed attempts, so many betrayals and renewed hostilities, it helps to have a fresh perspective, Lily replied. Sometimes those caught in a conflict cannot see the path out of it. Tellax's tendrils wavered thoughtfully. You and Commander Azira, you are mates. This is correct. Lily nodded, uncertain where this was going. Among my people, Tellax said, such a bond is sacred, even between different species. It suggests a harmony of spirit that transcends physical form. She performed a formal gesture that neither Lily nor Azira recognized. May your union inspire others to look beyond ancient hatreds. As they departed the trading post, Azira seemed pensive. Her usual alertness was replaced by quiet contemplation. What are you thinking about? Lily asked as their ship broke away from the station. Azira gazed out at the stars. I never imagined returning home would lead to this, she admitted. I expected to deliver the intelligence about the Void Hammer, perhaps help plan a counterstrike, then leave again, continue our life on the fringes. She turned to Lily. Instead, you have changed the course of two empires. Lily smiled. I only created an opportunity. Your father made the choice to pursue peace. So did Ambassador Tellax. They were ready for a different path. The Dominator was a hive of activity when they returned. News of the ceasefire had spread throughout the fleet, causing equal measures of celebration, confusion, and outrage. Some warriors felt cheated of glory. Others were simply relieved that they might live to see their hatchlings grow. The civilian population on nearby Xeraxian worlds reacted with cautious optimism. Many had never known peace in their lifetimes. The concept was almost as alien as Lily herself. Krell welcomed them in the Grand Hall of the Dominator, a rare public ceremony that was broadcast throughout the Empire. Azira stood tall and proud beside her father, while Lily remained slightly behind, a position that respected Xeraxian hierarchy while maintaining her dignity. As a diplomat, today marks the beginning of a new era for the Xeraxian Empire. Krell announced, his voice carrying throughout the massive chamber and to the billions watching the transmission. For centuries we have fought the Volterans, spending the blood of our warriors and the resources of our worlds in endless conflict. Today we choose a different path. There were murmurs throughout the hall, some of approval, some of dissent. Krell silenced them with a gesture. This path was shown to us by my daughter, Commander Azira, thought lost to us for 20 years. She has returned not only with intelligence about Volturan weapons, but with a new perspective gained from her time beyond our borders. He turned to Azira, and with a new ally from a species previously unknown to us. Krell gestured for Lily to step forward. She did so aware of the thousands of eyes on her, the only human most Xeraxians had ever seen. Lily Morgan of Earth has shown courage, wisdom, and loyalty to my daughter and to the Empire. She has risked her life to bring us this opportunity for peace. Krell continued. And so I name her Friend of the Empire, the highest honor we can bestow upon a non-Xeraxian. The ceremony continued with formal presentations of the peace agreement, explanations of the next steps, introductions of the Adari representatives who would oversee the weapons inspections. Throughout it all, Lily observed the reactions of the Xeraxian High Council. Some were clearly supportive. Others maintained neutral expressions, masking their thoughts. A few openly displayed displeasure, their crests flattened against their skulls in the Xeraxian expression of disapproval. That evening, a smaller gathering was held in Krell's private chambers. Only his most trusted advisors were present, along with Azira and Lily. The peace is fragile. Vex warned many fleet commanders oppose it. They see it as surrender. Krell nodded. That is why the implementation must be handled carefully. He said, each step must be verified. Each concession must be matched by the Volterans. Any sign of treachery will reignite the conflict. Lily spoke up. Perhaps it would help to focus on the benefits, beyond just the absence of war. What opportunities does peace create? The council members looked at her, with varying degrees of interest and skepticism. Trade routes that have been closed for centuries, Lily continued, new markets for Xeraxian goods. The chance to rebuild worlds damaged by the war, and beyond your borders, she added carefully. There are other species, other civilizations that have avoided contact with both empires due to the conflict. My own people have only recently begun to explore this sector of space, cautiously fearing to be drawn into your war. With peace established, new alliances become possible. New technologies can be shared. One of the council members, a female named Sarah who oversaw civilian infrastructure, leaned forward. The human makes a valid point, she said. Our focus has been so long on war that we have neglected development. Transportation systems, education, healthcare, all have suffered. We have entire generations who know only how to fight, not how to build. For hours, they discussed the practical aspects of transitioning from war to peace. The challenges were enormous, but so were the possibilities. Later, Azira and Lily walked through the ship to their quarters. Xeraxian crew members stopped to salute Azira. Some casting curious glances at Lily. News of her role in the peace negotiations had spread quickly. Your father has assigned us permanent quarters, Azira said as they entered a spacious chamber near the command deck. Far more luxurious than anything they'd experienced in their years on the fringes. It seems he expects us to stay. Lily examined the room, noting how it had been modified with furniture sized for both Xeraxian and human proportions. Temperature controls that could accommodate both species' comfort needs. Even the lighting had been adjusted to include spectrum ranges suitable for human vision. He wants us to stay, she agreed. But is that what you want? Azira was silent for a moment, staring out the viewport at the stars. For 20 years we've been wanderers, she said. Never staying in one place, never belonging anywhere. Survival was our only goal. She turned to Lily. Now we have a chance to build something. Help shape this peace. Be part of something larger than ourselves. And if we stayed here, you would be far from Earth, from your people. Azira added. From your family. Lily smiled sadly. My family is gone, she said softly. A fact she'd shared with Azira years ago. My parents died before I left Earth. My brother died in an accident while I was on the exploration mission. The Horizon crew was the closest thing I had to family, and they abandoned me. She took Azira's clawed hand in hers. You are my family now, and perhaps here I can help bridge the gap between our species. Prepare the way for formal contact between Earth and the Ziraxian Empire. Their conversation was interrupted by a communication alert. Krell requested their presence immediately. When they arrived at the command center, they found it in a state of controlled chaos. Officers moved with urgent purpose between stations. Communication arrays flashed with incoming transmissions. What has happened? Azira asked her father. Krell gestured to the main display. A Ziraxian patrol fleet was engaged with Volturan ships near the border. The ceasefire has been broken, he said, his voice grim. Lily felt her heart sink. But why the agreement was just signed? One of the officers, a grizzled veteran named Talon, approached Commander. One of our patrol vessels was attacked by Volturan ships when it entered the Carvis system, he reported. The captain responded with full force as per standard protocols before receiving the ceasefire orders. Azira hissed in frustration. The Carvis system was one of the disputed territories that would form part of the demilitarized zone. Our patrol had no business being there, she said. The ceasefire clearly specified all military vessels were to withdraw. Who authorized this patrol? Krell demanded. The room fell silent. Then Vex stepped forward. It was a routine patrol scheduled before the ceasefire was announced. He said, I failed to countermand the orders. Lily studied Vex carefully. The Ziraxian avoided meeting Krell's eyes. His posture was defensive rather than apologetic. She had spent enough time among Ziraxians to recognize deception. High Commander, she said carefully, may I suggest we verify this information directly with the patrol commander? Krell turned to her, his expression unreadable. You question my advisor's human, not their loyalty, Lily said, but perhaps their understanding of the situation. War has been the norm for so long, peace requires adjustment. Krell considered this, then nodded. Establish direct communication with the patrol commander. He ordered. The communication revealed the truth. The patrol had received explicit orders to enter the Carvis system. Despite the ceasefire, the orders had come with Vex authentication, code treachery. Krell roared, his massive frame looming over Vex. You would sabotage this peace. Vex stood defiant. I would protect our empire from weakness, he snarled. This human has bewitched both you and your daughter. Peace with the Volturans is impossible. They cannot be trusted. They will use this time to strengthen their forces, then strike when we have lowered our defenses. Guards seized Vex at Krell's command, but the damage was done. The fragile peace was threatened before it had truly begun. We must contain this, Lily said urgently. Contact Ambassador Tellax. Explain what happened. Make it clear this was the action of one individual, not the Empire. For hours they worked to salvage the situation. Azira drafted a formal apology to the Volturans. Krell personally contacted Tellax explaining the circumstances. The Adari mediators were called in to help navigate the crisis. 3 days later, a response came from the Volturan High Council. They had experienced similar resistance to the peace. One of their fleet commanders had also attempted to provoke conflict. The incidents had essentially canceled each other out. Neither side would use them as an excuse to abandon the ceasefire. It was a narrow escape, but it highlighted the challenges ahead. Peace would not come easily to species that had known only war for generations, but it had survived its first test. In the months that followed implementation of the peace, agreement began slowly, carefully, each side watching the other for signs of betrayal. The Adari mediators proved invaluable, helping navigate misunderstandings and maintaining open communication. The weapons inspections were particularly tense. The Voidhammer was even more advanced than intelligence had suggested, the Abyss protocol equally devastating. Both sides reluctantly allowed experts from neutral species to document and begin dismantling the weapons. Lily found herself increasingly involved in diplomatic efforts. Her unique status as both human and friend of the Empire made her an ideal intermediary. She traveled between Xeraxian and Volturan worlds, mediating disputes, explaining cultural differences, building bridges between ancient enemies.